Into state capture, former President Jacob Zuma appears unconcerned about the evidence that has been presented at the commission so far. His lawyers have confirmed they will not be applying to cross-examine any of the witnesses who've spoken, saying nothing that has been said implicates their client in any criminal or ethical wrongdoing. We're joined now by KARYN MAUGHAN, senior legal journalist at Tiso Black Star, in the studio. KARYN, good evening to you as always. Thank you for talking to us. I mean, we've heard explosive evidence at the inquiry so far, certainly from the likes of Themba Maseko and Phumla Williams yesterday.
Well, exactly, and I think it's quite extraordinary that we see now that the former president is essentially saying that he's not going to seek to challenge any of this testimony in any kind of profound way. Of course, Phumla Williams revealing in her testimony that as her relationship with the former communications minister degenerated, she actually reached out to the former president not once but twice to seek his help in a wide range of their relationship breakdown, and that he simply did nothing. Of course, Themba Maseko, her previous boss or head of her department, giving evidence that the former president told him on a phone call prior to meeting with Ajay Gupta that he needed to help the Guptas. And of course the evidence of Fakey Mentor, who says that he was present at Saxonwold when this alleged offer of the position of Minister of Public Enterprises was made to her. So quite extraordinary that the president feels, in light of all of that, he doesn't want to put a version before the commission. And I think many people will read that as him trying to stay out of the crosshairs and potentially avoid testifying as much as possible.
Because let's be clear, I mean, until now, in fact, Jacob Zuma has never spoken under oath about what he knew or didn't know as far as state capture is concerned, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think that's an incredibly valuable point. If you want to have that illustrated, go and listen to the 4-hour-long attempted questioning by then Public Protector Thuli Madonsela.
She tried every trick in the book, including coughing, to avoid answering questions.
And she actually said to him at one point, she was so frustrated, these are things that you will know about. Surely you can give me a version on that. And his repeated argument was that, I need to seek legal advice. This has implications for me. So up until now, even in Parliament, when we saw him, facing questions from MPs about Mcebisi Jonas's allegations that the Guptas had offered him the position of finance minister just months before that shock removal of Nhlanhla Nene to be replaced by the so-called weekend special Des van Rooyen. He just kept saying, ask Jonas. I'm the one that appoints. Ask Jonas. Ask Jonas. So up until now, as you rightly point out, there is no version from the former president as to what exactly his side of the story on these claims are.
We heard from, Mcebisi Jonas, we heard from Themba Maseko, things like we are in control of everything in terms of the Hawks, in terms of the NPA. Those were some of the allegations that we've heard. Certainly we now know members of cabinet are alleged to have leaked documents. I mean, if not at his behest, certainly for the benefit of his friends, and he has nothing to say.
And I think what's so interesting is that, these are the kind of, the language in that letter, the lawyer said, well, we've consulted the Public Finance Management Act, the Executive Members Ethics Act, the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, the Criminal Procedure Act. And as far as we can see, according to the statements that you provided to us, our client, the former president, has not been implicated.
So they're looking at the letter of the law and not even necessarily, certainly not the spirit of the law.
Well, I mean, when you consider the fact that Thuli Madonsela did find that there was a basis to believe that such ethical violations had in fact occurred. It's quite extraordinary to turn around and say, in a position where you have been handed notices that you may be implicated by that evidence, that your lawyers would feel that you saying, well, I don't believe I have, would be enough to persuade the commission that you don't need to cross-examine anyone.
So let's go back to the first thing you said when we started this conversation, the idea that the former president basically, I mean, unless he's seen a charge sheet from evidence that's emanating from this inquiry, there is a view that he won't want to expose himself and have to then reveal things or have to answer questions he doesn't want to answer. So let them say what they want.
I think that's a very perceptive comment. He is going to be facing trial for corruption. He's bringing a permanent stay application in November. But we also know the Hawks have gone on record and saying he's a suspect in terms of the revelations made by Tiso Black Star, that he and RJ Gupta are under investigation. The exact scope of that investigation, whether it has the framework of potentially a Shabir Sheikh case, i.e. a corrupt relationship, we don't know. But he may very well feel that there might be an attempt to prosecute him. But unfortunately, the silence at this point is deafening. And you know, his advocate during the opening phases of the inquiry said he wanted to participate meaningfully. He has repeated, you and I repeatedly, we can go through archive footage, said, I will respond, I will deal with these allegations, I have all these secrets, all these things that I want to talk about, I will give my version, I want an inquiry where we can look at this. And then when that inquiry comes, you say, well, I'm not going to give a version of my side of the story of this. I'm just going to let it slide. And I think the more interesting legal question is, if he doesn't dispute the claims in relation to him, does that inevitably mean that the commission must then accept that, in fact,
silence means consent?
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose the central objection in terms of his specific role, quite apart from all the other things in terms of enabling a project around state capture with SOEs and so on, is the idea that members of his cabinet were essentially appointed from Saxonwold.
And I mean, that allegation was made, during the Tiso Black Star's evidence, where he said that RJ Gupta, in fact, said to him, if someone gives you difficulties with trying to channel money through GCIs to our media organizations, then, we will speak to the president and he will, quote unquote, sort these people out. And what is disturbing is that in terms of what happened with Jonas and in terms of what happened with Nene's removal, an explanation was given for that removal, which Nene, as much as he tries to stay out of the public eye, has admitted was in fact manifestly false. So up until now, the former president, still has not explained to us why he made that decision.
You've covered all of these issues for many, many years. You can go back, years ago. Would it be naive to even think that Jacob Zuma, on some level, must surely be concerned about his legacy and what all of this information is going to do to that?
I think the former president is just battling to survive. I mean, he is facing a very strong corruption case on which his former financial advisor was convicted. Given the standing of those judgments, given the evidence against him, he's looking at a very real possibility that he will be convicted on those charges and potentially go to jail. He is also sitting with a 10 million rand personal costs order in the state capture matter, which he is going to court on the 20th of September to fight, which he will have to pay in his personal capacity unless he manages to overturn that. He's looking at having his funding of his legal costs cut by this court application that's being brought by the EFF and the DA. And there might be a reading of the situation that says, well, state capture is the least of his worries at this point. This commission's going to go on for 2 years. Maybe at some point he'll look at the evidence and think, I want to give my side of the story. But in terms of the pressing dramas that he's facing, this is not an immediate threat to him. And
so in that context, legacy is possibly higher grade stuff. KARYN MAUGHAN, thank you very much for joining in and unpacking that for us. KARYN MAUGHAN, of course, is a senior legal reporter at Tiso Black Star, joining us in the studio. We do ask you to send us your comments, by the way. Use the hashtag FullView on Twitter. You can also send us voice notes. There's the number on your screen, 066 479 8056. And you can view our interviews and features by going to sabcnews.com. We're on Facebook. You'll also, as I say, find us on Twitter.